Hey guys, welcome back for part 3 of the Venetian board build. Basically what I've done today is a lot of painting of the tiles. I'm going to talk you through the colours I used for that. It's almost entirely done with airbrushes except from pigmenting at the end. So if you don't have an airbrush, you can use these same colours with a big brush, but again, I recommend you use a big brush because there's a lot of tiles here and it's a lot of time painting. All of the paints I've used have been doused down with a bit of flow improver because a lot of these paints aren't actually airbrush paints and I want them to come out nice and thin and give me a nice even coating. I started off by base coating the top of the tiles using Model Colours Burnt Umber. That was just to give it a nice brown, almost like a red undertone. I then went through, I went over the whole thing again with a very thin coat of Model Colour Medium Sea Grey. After that, I did the same again, but it was medium sea grey with the burnt umber. That was just to tie the two colours a bit nicely together. Then everything was looking very grey and I needed to add some colour to the tiles. So I went over several different spots and started off using Model Air US Field Drab. That was mixed in with the light sea grey from before. I just picked spots and sprayed over the top using the airbrush. I did the same thing again, only this time I used Model Colours Deep Green. Obviously the whole board is very aquatic and I need to use greens in places so that the tiles don't look out of place next to the water. Everything needs to tie in together, the colours need to work together. So they were just the various different spots I went over with the green. And then finally, this one here, this one wasn't mixed in with any colour, it was literally straight out of the bottle. It's Game Colours Dead Flesh. And that was just to give it some nice yellow spots. That was just to make everything pop out a little bit more. After that, everything was very, it was all over the place. There's lots of colours here and here and there. So I needed to tie everything in together. To do that, I had to give the whole thing a wash. I used two different washes. This one was Secret Weapon Stone. I went over everything with this wash, waited for it to dry, and went over with a second wash, which is Army Painter's Soft Tone. Went for a whole bottle of that stuff. It was, I used a lot. I needed to, and that was just to make sure that all the colours tied in together. The sides of the tiles, I decided to go for a bit of a dirty red brick look. I had a look at some reference pictures online at canal walls, and a lot of them are like a dark red, very, very dark. So I decided to start with Model Colours Hull Red. That was the base coat. Did everything along the side, a nice even coat, made it pop. I think I went over that one twice actually because the first coat was very dark, being that I undercoated black. So I went over it again just so that the red really stood out. And then I highlighted from the bottom of the tile, not the top, because the top's going to have green on it where the algae's grown on the sides and whatnot. So I highlighted from the bottom of these tiles Panzer Ace's Light Rust, which is very similar to the whole red in colour, but it's a brighter shade. It's almost a terracotta. I then did another coat using both those colours at a 1-to-1 mix, just to tie it in together again. And they also got the same wash that the top of the tiles received. After that, everything was very dark. The wash is great because it ties everything together and it makes everything just blend like nicely. So everything was looking really dark, at which point I decided to go over all of the board with various different Vallejo pigments. I used 4 different pigments, and you can use these very sparingly. You don't have to use a lot, and in fact I recommend you don't. They're so strong. Just put a tiny bit on your brush, flick it off, and start putting dabs of colour. It just adds a bit of colour to the grey. The colours I used were Vallejo pigments, and I found the English version. Brown Iron Oxide. I used Rust. I used Chrome Oxide Green. And I used European Earth. If you find after you've put the pigments down that it's a bit bright and you don't really like the look, this stuff's great because you can just wipe it off with your hand, or if you get a wet brush, you can always use a wet brush to wash it in, and the colour will blend out quite nicely. So that's where I've got today. I am going to start working on the actual water itself now. Again, that's going to be lots of greens. I'll start by removing the tiles off the board altogether. Then I'll put the colour down on the actual canals. Then I'll put the tiles down, at which point I'll probably glue them down, and that'll be it. Everything's glued then, because again, nothing's glued. And once it's all glued down, I'll go over with another green just to get the overspray where I want it, so that the algae actually looks like it's going from the water onto the tiles. That's the plan for tomorrow. Please check back and see where we get. Thanks for watching, guys.